Tim.
Yes.
What's your topic?
So my topic today.
Oh shit, we have Tim's topics.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. We can get through this one.
No hurries,
As
bro.
long as it takes.
No hurries,
Take it, bro. Take it, bro.
That's the mantra. As long as it takes.
Podcasting. Or podcasts.
As hard as it gets.
What are you guys' thoughts on it? Are there any that you listen to? What are your thoughts on just the idea of podcasting? Is it crazy to you that there's people that would listen to people talk? Is it crazy to you that you listen to people talk?
I've heard it's having a resurgence, and I'm not saying that just because we started doing this show, but I've read a couple articles saying that podcasting, everyone thought it was going away for a while, and now it's coming back.
Who thought it was going away?
Well, I think it was going away for a while because like the YouTube
Online video,
yeah,
YouTube
video
was
became
happening.
a thing. So podcasts did die down for a bit, and then now they are going up. There's like so many more just statistically.
Sure.
So and they're doing better than they have ever.
I never listened to podcasts until we started doing this show, largely because I was like, okay, we're part of this podcast community now. I should branch out and start. And then when you start going down that rabbit hole, it's the problem with podcasts is they're a huge time suck. And if you find a good one, unless you're in LA or you're driving or you're taking mass transit, like my commute to work's 20 minutes, so it takes me a week to listen to a whole podcast if it's as long as ours is. But I going down that, I'm like, okay, I'll look up people that I know and see. So Kevin Smith, obviously, is one of the people that I always listen to. He does Smodcast. He does Fat Man on Batman.
Fat Man on Batman's really good.
He does Jay and Silent Bob Get Old. These are, him and Scott Mosier are hilarious. It takes a little getting used to, like everything, because you're basically like, it's an intimate thing when you're sitting there listening to two people that are talking in their living room or talking in their home studio. But once you get into that world, it's crazy how well you can connect with people. So started listening to him. Started listening to Rhett and Link's podcast, Ear Biscuits, which is amazing. That's one of mine. It's just awesome. Those guys are so good at what they do. It's not like our podcast where we sit here and talk about complete and total nonsensical stuff and have a great time about it. They interview people. It's an interview podcast. So they do this great thing. It's very much like NPR. Well, they'll set up who the person is first. Then you'll go into the interview, and then they'll have like segment breaks where they'll talk about the next. Very, very well structured. Those guys are pros. Yeah, they're great. And the only other podcast that I listen to aside from The Business, which is NPR, which is really, really good. If you guys haven't listened to it, I think it's only 30 minutes, but it's a hardcore look at the film and TV business. And they go, they go super in depth as like who's trying to buy DreamWorks and who's taking over for as the chairman or president of Fox and all this stuff. So it's really cool to hear that, get that exposure. But no shadow of a doubt, the craziest podcast I listen to is the American Cinematographer podcast. They don't do it all that often. And this is something Sean Finnegan turned me on to. He was like, you got to listen to this podcast. It's amazing. It's once a month, and they talk to random cinematographers or director of photographies from throughout the years. It's not even just modern stuff. The best of which I think was, I forget his name, but he was the cinematographer for RoboCop. And so they talk to him now about that movie and how they had to make that movie in the 80s and how they had to make this costume that took 3 or 4 hours to get into, that now they would just make it a CG thing, and how they had to shoot it such a certain way and how they had to put it like, he goes as far as to say the suit was actually rubber. You don't know that because they shot it so well. It looks like it's metal, because like if that suit were like plastic, it wouldn't have read right, so we found a rubber compound that would do it. He goes, but then we wanted, the thing that sells metal effects is that you have to have reflections, right? Reflections are what sell anything, makes it look like metal. The more reflective it is, the shinier surface, the more metal like it is. So he's like, we'd have to go around and put lights, like flashlights, strategically all around set, just so we could have the right reflection, so this thing would look real. And then he's like, and then we also had to follow these rules of, when you're shooting Robo, he calls him Robo. It's like, when we're shooting Robo, and he's crazy Scandinavian guy because he's Paul Verhoeven's like main guy from when Paul Verhoeven came over. Sorry, I'm talking to you guys.
Of course.
About it.
Paul Verhoeven, we all know
well. Yeah. Verhoeven. So he's like, we got to shoot Robo from Robo. You guys got to shoot low, so Robo looks bigger than life. And you're like, that's just cool. It's cool listening to the way these guys.
I like stories like that.
Think about how to make these characters come to life. Yeah. And really, it's when you listen to just directors. Directors always have to talk about sort of their grand vision for it, right? But the cinematographer or the DP talks about how best to support that vision with visuals. So, to put it in games terms, I guess it would be more like, I don't know. I guess the creative director is sort of the person that helms the project, but then you've got like, I guess the lead environment artists or any of the lead artists that'll come in and kind of talk about the visual and how that affects the storytelling. It's super cool. It's really, really cool. And it's very technical. So if you don't have that vocabulary, it'll help get you there, along with reading the American Cinematographer magazine, which is amazing. Those are my podcasts.
similar to, I mean, I'm gonna give a whole bunch here.
Yes.
But Rhett and Link reminded me of Talk is Jericho, Chris Jericho's podcast. Not just about wrestling, but it's the same thing. You bring somebody on, interviews them, they talk about a whole bunch of stuff, run the gamut, as they say. I want my new favorite like obsession podcast is Death, Sex, and Money. It's by Anna Sale. This is something I caught from This American Life, because This American Life is like the epicenter of my podcast world. Off of that comes The Moth, Death, Sex, and Money, now Serial, which I'll talk about all in a second. This American Life, obviously, just a great, weekly show. They sometimes a little bit not weekly, running reruns in there as they do things, but journalism of whatever caliber about stories out in America. Topics switch off as they go. There's a theme to every episode, but every episode feels very different, which I like a lot about it, giving you different glances at what's happening here and there. Death, Sex, and Money is the new Anna Sale show. It's on the short side, which I don't like. I wish it was longer. I wish it was like This American Life. You're getting like an hour's worth of content. You know what I mean? At least usually. And then Anna Sale, this one, it's like 20, 30 minutes somewhere in there. You know what I mean? But again, it's interviews with somebody that, and then they all have to do with something, death, sex, or money, or all of them wrapped up. Or, the tagline for the show is the things we all think about but don't talk about enough, or something like that extent. You know what I mean? It's like they had Jane Fonda on there talking about her entire life and how this was all wrapped up with death, sex, and money. And then
I definitely don't think about Jane Fonda enough. That's for sure.
Well, no, death, sex, and money is things you because all three of those things.
It's fine. Jane.
It's an amazing episode. Jane Fonda is an amazing woman.
She's awesome.
She does amazing work on the newsroom. Yes. I won't hear anything other. But yeah, you go through stuff like that. They do one with a guy who's getting a vasectomy and talk to him about that.
As he's getting the vasectomy?
No, not well, actually, yeah, he recorded it himself, actually. It's good though. Ew. That's what you got. Ew. That's what you got for me.
Mm-hmm. Take a little piece out of you.
Yes,
just a little piece. Just a little piece.
No, I mean, if I'm not okay with veins, I'm definitely not okay with taking your man bits.
It's fine. It just kind of.
Don't take your man bits. Just the part of the man bit.
See,
let's put it
that's
this way.
it. If it was the whole thing, that'd be one thing. But it's the inside parts.
It's like, have you seen Lethal Weapon 3 where they have to cut the cord? They have to cut the cord of the bomb at the beginning. It's exactly what it is, except you cut it on both sides.
Serial's the new This American Life podcast. Have you heard about this? A lot of people are talking about it. It's doing really well. It's basically like, think of like Dateline. You know how they follow a case for an hour or whatever. This is like a season dedicated to one case, with each episode being something different about it or whatever, and like they're going through doing it. It's really good so far. Everybody, I highly recommend it. It's good.
What is it called?
Serial, like serial killer.
I'm gonna look it up right now. What was the other one?
Like Booberry.
Like Booberry, yeah. Serial and it's other Death, Sex, and Money.
Like Honey Bunches of
Booberry and
Oats.
Fruit Loops.
The Moth, another one that's part of the This American Life, I feel, family of shows, even though this, like, for This American Life and Serial are directly connected. Death, Sex, and Money isn't. It's just like a cool podcast they thought was cool. They brought, I think, one of the stories on. Same thing with The Moth is how I originally they frequently featured on This American Life. The Moth is true stories told in front of a live audience. So their podcast is sometimes, usually one story from one person. Sometimes they'll put up the Moth Story Slams, which are like, giant swatches of people, but just people coming out and telling their stories about whatever. It's really good.
I like that.
What was it? Money, Sex, Death? Was that the first one?
Death, Sex, and Money.
Shows where my priorities are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Colin.
So I don't listen to podcasts per se because it says a lot about how I interact with media and like how I need to focus on certain things. So like at work, for instance, I don't listen to anything when I'm working because I can't write and I can't read and I can't think when I'm listening to something. Yeah, on my commutes, I listen to music. I listen to Spotify. Spotify's the best $10 a month you can possibly spend. It's amazing, and that's all I do. Like when I commute, I listen to music and I read the news. I think the closest thing I get to listening to actual podcasts is that I really enjoy Pardon the Interruption and Around the Horn on ESPN, which actually I think are in podcast form if you want them, but their shows, half-an-hour shows each about sports, like the day of sports, and it's like a debate kind of, and I listen to those as much as I can. I often DVR them, and then I go through things where I watch like one a day for, keep up with it for a few weeks, and then I just have like 10, and I just delete them all because they're useless after a day.
Yeah, because they're topical.
Exactly, like they're like that day, and some of them don't even work after a few hours. Like because things go so quickly in the world of sports. But I'm more of a reader. Like I interact with things like informational things, which I kind of look. Podcasts are entertainment. Like this one's entertainment. Podcast Beyond is entertainment. But a lot of people recommend, like Hardcore History, for instance, which is a Dan Carlin podcast. Like people like love that podcast. I get recommendations for that podcast for years. Like people like, or you have to listen to this podcast. And it's just like, that's not the way I really interact with things. I'd rather watch a documentary. I'd rather it to be visual and audio. And so, I'm watching Ken Burns' The Roosevelts and all those kinds of things.
How was
now.
that? You were ready for it.
Yeah, it's good. I actually started even watching, the cool thing about YouTube is that I don't think people, like documentarians, really get too crazy about copyright and stuff like that, and like just like they like people watching their stuff. YouTube is just a wealth of documentaries. Like I just search every once in a while. I just search for documentary, and I just like look, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like it's a 3.5 hour documentary on the French Revolution that I watched when we were in New York. You know, like oh, this is cool. I can feel that. It's awesome.
It's a long ass time.
The Roosevelt's is like 16 hours.
Oh my God.
I think Ken Burns' Baseball was like 22 hours or something like that, which was like an awesome documentary. So I think I just interact with things a little bit differently where I don't really have a time where I'm just sitting there and I want to listen to audio because I compartmentalize the things that I do. So when I'm writing, I write. When I listen to music, I listen to the music. When I'm watching sports, I watch sports. There's never a time where I'm like doing something and there's something in the background. And if there is, like when I'm working out or cooking or something, I'll just listen to music, kind of some ambient music. So I think it's just a way that I interact with media.
It's a mood thing for me. When I'm doing dishes or I'm cooking, I like a podcast. When I'm playing Minecraft, I usually have it on mute anyway, and I'm listening to a podcast. DC Universe, when I'd go around farming my exobytes and exobits podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love listening to podcasts while I drive. There's just something about hearing two other people talk that you don't have to respond to. Especially listening to like Smodcast. I don't know if you guys listen to Smodcast at all, but Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier just... Well, I think they get super high. In fact, I know they get super high because you can hear them smoking on the show. For a long time, they even talk about how they're like, well, we were trying to hide this from everyone. Now you'll just hear like the click of the Bic lighter every once in a while. Yeah, you'll hear a little bubbling. You never hear the bubbling, but you do hear like that. You'll hear a cough every once in a while. And not that I'm advocating marijuana use at all, but they just are having fun, right? And they're just joking around. And they're two guys that have literally known each other almost their entire life, and they've got so many shared common things that they. Together, these shared experience together, not the least of which was, Scott Mosier helped Kevin Smith produce Clerks and has been his producer.
He's been on
since then, and so these guys share such a bond that they're letting you in on that. I think that's just really, really cool. And hearing them laugh together, and then the more you listen to it, the more you get those inside jokes, and you start to hear the inception of these amazing things that Kevin's doing, where he had quit filmmaking for a while, and then because of his audience, decided to get back into it. With projects like Red State or Tusk or Yoga Hosers that's coming up now, which I'm super excited for. It's just it's fun to be counted amongst people that podcast, and it's fun to be a part of that culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Have you gone through your picks?
No. So for me, the only one that I listen to religiously is my boy Tone Deaf.
Tone Deaf?
It's my boy Tone Deaf.
It's him and one of my other favorite rappers, Pac FM. Their podcast is called Tacos and Chocolate Milk. Which is one of the greatest podcast names.
I'm gonna listen to this.
It's very a lot of in jokes, and it's just two dudes that are like really good friends talking about hip hop and also just talking about whatever. It's similar to this show in a lot of ways, and it's really entertaining. I like listening to them. And it's just like hearing their perspective on stuff when it's not being rapped is really fun. So they're the only ones that I listen to all the time. That's because I'm invested. Other podcasts that I enjoy. There's one called Chewing It with Steve and Kevin. The guys from Broken Lizard, the Super Troopers dudes.
Oh, wow.
They are hilarious.
That sounds funny.
Yeah, they're great. And they get a lot of good guests, too. Like, they got the Workaholics guys. And so it's just a bunch of comedians talking about shit. And it's so funny because they'll start talking about, like,
They ever get Michael Rosenbaum on?
I don't know.
In your face.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you this right now. If there's one person that does a spot on Christopher Walken, it's Mike Rosenbaum.
Episode 9 of the GameOverGreggy show.
Click and watch it right there.
His Walken is the upper echelon. It might be top percentile of Walkens ever done. I'd stack his up against Jay Moore.
I would stack it up against Walken.
I would, if I close my eyes, I wouldn't be able to tell you who's Walken and who's Michael Rosenbaum.
After that, it just goes into a bunch of YouTube people. You were saying the Red and Link one, Ear Biscuits, another great name for a podcast.
Oh God.
Grace Helbig just started a new one. Have you guys listened to this at all?
Mm-mm.
It's called Not So Deep with Grace Helbig. And it's really funny. It's really good. It's short. She's doing something that's different that I haven't seen yet, where it's like the audio is like 20 minutes of it, but then there's a YouTube component too that goes in the middle of it. So it's weird and interactive and shit.
Interesting.
Too much for me to keep up with and actually do, but it sounds cool.
She's got 1 billion subscribers.
And then
I'll actually follow her doing that stuff.
Oh, the Rooster Teeth podcast. That's awesome. I like that one a lot.
Never heard of them.
Yeah, they're these dudes that talk
Rooster
about stuff. But the Rooster Teeth podcast is it's consistently good.
And what do you like about the Rooster Teeth podcast?
I like it that I like them. Mm-hmm. Like they're funny people, and they always talk about really topical things. And I like the perspective on stuff, and I like that you get a bunch of different perspectives. It's similar to this, where it's just like
You really do run a wide spectrum at this table.
Yeah, exactly.
Of perspectives.
So it's good. But another one, and I think this is probably my favorite that I just to randomly listen to, is the Face Rocker podcast, which is Freddie Wong's thing.
Interesting.
It definitely has a cinematographer slant, where it's definitely
doing a lot of
very
cool work.
hardcore into talking about like making video. So obviously I have some investment there. But also Freddie Wong is just a wealth of knowledge of just random trivia, and Greg will attest to this.
Don't even get me started on Freddie Wong.
Yeah, go.
Freddie Wong, Freddie, amazing human being. We love him very much. Obviously, helped us out with the Patreon stuff. He's in our Patreon video. Amazing. He's a friend of ours, a personal friend of our show. But I mean, like anytime you talk to Freddie, you could just be like, man, it's just like it's crazy that this glass isn't flat and that it does this. And he would break down the physics of this glass and where it was invented and how and why this happens. And he'd have theorems and math. And
it's crazy, man. He just knows everything.
Right.
He knows way too much about everything.
Yeah.
It's just like, how do you know that much?
Yeah. Him and
it's
Colin
always
need
fun.
a show
Oh,
where they
yeah,
just
that'd
talk
be
to
good.
each other. Like when I'm sure Freddie will be through here at some point. And when that happens, one of the topics we should do is just like, me, Nick, and Tim want to see what you and Colin talk about, and we leave the room and leave them
Just
alone
let
for
them
20
talk and we
minutes.
We just watch. We just
Speaking
stare
of
through
Freddie,
the
real
window.
quick, Video Game High School Season 3 just launched yesterday. You guys should definitely check that out. And Nick, you should check this out.
Season 3?
They stepped it up.
That's my thing about like I hosted the Comic-Con panel for them. It was me and Freddie and with the other guy, not Matt, of whose name I'm blanking.
Des?
No, other guy. Campos. Why can't I?
Oh, no.
Look at your phone. Wikipedia, Video Game High School. Thanks for all your help.
I'll do it.
You didn't
keep
get me
talking.
the charger earlier.
Why didn't you say something? We're trying to do a goddamn show over here.
so sad earlier, Greg.
Anyways, I watched the show. I mean, we did the panel. They didn't need me at all, but for some reason I was brought along for the ride, which was nice. Will, does that sound right?
Yes.
Thank you.
There was
It
a
was
Will.
Will. Thank you. It was Freddie and Will. I watched that show, and it's amazing what season 3 looks like. Season 3 is insane.
Yeah,
looks like a movie.
40
shot
minutes
incredibly
long,
well.
an episode.
But like,
Holy shit.
Like I mean, like
Well, it's the final season, right? They're not doing this anymore.
right when you go and you need to watch it, Nick.
Okay.
Especially though, just for the end with the opera scene when she starts singing and it's that montage of everything that's happening. It's like, holy shit, is this amazing?
They did good.
Did you give up on it?
You said Will. He said yes. I didn't
Yeah,
look
it
up
is.
I
anymore.
want to
It's
double
what counts.
check. I want
No, it is.
verification.
It definitely is.
Tim's
Definitely is.
a lexicon, a walking
know that
freaking
shit.
library of all these people, so he knows it.
But yeah, definitely go check it out. Tweet at F Wong, telling him what you think about it.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing about Freddie. I've only met him a handful of times. Super nice guy. Does make you feel a little stupid because he's so smart and so insanely.
See, he never makes you feel stupid though.
like Colin.
He knows more than Will Campos.
No, Colin makes me feel stupid just because.
Sorry.
I will not in a bad way. In a way that makes me want to go be more learned. Like I'll talk to Colin and I'll be like, I should go home and read. Not in a degrading way. And same with Freddie. Like I'm not saying like.
I was gonna say, what are you about to say?
No,
for
no,
Freddie?
no.
me.
Freddie's just a very.
Freddie just laughs in your face all the time.
Freddie's just a really inspirational guy, right? Like he's super smart. He was able to turn, his love of effects and making online video into not only a career, but basically an insane life for himself and his friends, and the guys that he works with. And yeah, now he's doing great work, right? And being able to follow his career from like just making ridiculous lightsaber videos to now making something that you guys are saying. I mean, clearly I have to watch now. I'm interested. I'm going to go see this. I want to see the
so
production
good.
quality. And, I remember seeing Video Game High School 1 and going, okay, this looks cool. It's like a Nickelodeon show or something I'd see, made for kids. I haven't seen season 2 yet, so I got to watch that. And now I guess I got to watch season 3.
that's the most
Now I got
interesting
more
about
stuff
it
to
is,
watch.
like, just watching
this
it
and
go
Franklin
and
and
it
Bash.
grows.
Yeah.
This and Franklin and Bash.
I got this and I got Franklin and Bash. Done. That and some dried fruit. Ooh. Some apricots, maybe.
I like some of your
Stuff those down my throat.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the Game Over Greggy Show. Remember, each and every week, 4, sometimes 5 best friends gather around this table. Each bring a random topic of discussion for your amusement. If you like that, a new episode posts each and every Friday, and there are a number of ways to get it over on kindafunny.com that include Patreon support, which we love so much, Bandcamp, and Vimeo. Of course, if you don't think we're worth the money, neither do we. You can wait, and over at youtube.com/kindafunny, the episode goes up topic by topic, broken out for your amusement, starting on Sunday. Right now, probably next week and next week and next week, and maybe on and on and on, as long as people keep supporting us on Patreon with 5th topics. Right? Mm-hmm. I'm nailing it?
Yeah, something like that.
All right, great.
We'll see how it goes. I'm thinking it's going to go well, though.
Of course.
Something like that.
You can buy t-shirts over at districtlines.com/GameOverGreggy.
Team Fat.
Kindafunny.com/store. Is that
Yeah,
working?
you can do that too.
Just it's easier. Probably.
easier.
Kindafunny.com for all your needs
Team
for everything.
Fat.
There's a Team Fat shirt. It's amazing. buy the Colin and my presidential campaign shirt.
No, buy the other one.
I thought
Buy
a lot
the
about
winning
this.
shirt.
Also, I've had a couple tweets now. Should we start making a shirt for our female audience?
Yes, I send them
Okay.
to you all the time.
What do you
There
mean,
need to be
like a shirt-
female cuts?
An actual,
we don't do that?
No, we don't.
We just sell these garbage bag T-shirts that hide the form.
Oh, dude.
And if
Like-
there's
like
anything
the
we
ones
need to
we're
show,
wearing.
it's the form of our listeners.
Well, because I think,
Yes.
you know, like my wife even says that. She's like, you know, I'd buy
Christine
one of your
says it to me all
shirts
the time.
if you actually
Yeah,
made them
Alexis.
in female cuts.
All right, do it. It's done.
All right.
Pull the trigger.
All right, we have to just figure out which one we want to make. We'll have to start with one just to see how it does. Like,
Team
you know
vet.
me, I'm very risk averse to these. To
Yeah,
putting
so
more
like that's the
t-shirts.
thing with our shirts is that we, you know, for you guys, because we use a third party vendor, we buy them ahead of time. So that is a good idea. We should test like Team Fat or
I think
something like
we
that.
How
should
about
go
this?
with the most popular shirt we have, which is the Scarpino
That
Gettys
is not true. That is
2016.
not the most popular shirt. That
I like
is not
that.
the
Feel
most
the
popular
love. The
shirt.
party just got started. Keep it going with us, everyone. Cheetos.
Where's he at?
Is he here? I don't know.
He's
Can you?
here.
Is he
He's
ever
probably
here?
he's making big decisions somewhere.
He's on air
in the FaceTime with the Israelis.
He's in Iran negotiating the terms of the nuclear arms treaty.
Ladies who watch this show, let us know which shirt you'd like in the comments.
Yeah,
should we
that's
send
good.
everybody to
That's
Patreon or
good.
should we do it on YouTube?
Hit us up on Twitter because we'll be notified.
No. Who's gonna go back and check that? Who
Yeah, we need a place to collect them.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? You're
Oh,
gonna
here's
go
the
and
thing. I don't want to
select.
see this as an actual voting system. What is this? Your guys is winning? No. There's not going to be votes if we win. I just want to see we'll get a general consensus.
Of the women's shirt, which shirt the women's want.
Yep.
It's. I mean, again, it's clear. It's gonna be the Scarpino.
Okay, go to the YouTube video, this video, the breakout, and put it up there. How about that?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
that
And,
works.
And you
and
can
also
also
on
tweet at us.
Patreon.
And upvote-
Do not tweet at me about this.
Upvote the ones that you like, so it keeps it a little simpler if someone already posted
Sure.
one of those
They can't
shirts.
tweet at Kind of Funny Games. Kind of
No,
Funny Vids?
because
Excuse
that
me.
doesn't exist. You have to go to Kind of Funny Vids.
Kind of
yeah.
Funny Vids. Excuse me.
Yeah, at Kind of Funny Vids, but it's a nightmare and a half. We'll see how this one develops. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, it's been our pleasure serving you.